Religions aren't created overnight. They begin with a promise, then believers, then enemies, then doubt, then faith, and eventually, belief becomes stronger than evidence. I didn't realize I was looking at one until a month later.
Sunshine is staying John deep.
75,000 individual token holders from 143 countries from around the world. You're talking about Ukraine and Russia's at war. We got Ukraine XRP holders, Russian XRP holders that had joined us, and we know we made the difference. No one can claim that we did not have impact when the judge has a footnote citing our efforts and cites the XRP holder affidavit. So everyone in this community should take pride that they made a difference, not just for XRP, for their families, but for maybe a better just system moving forward.
I don't care what the market does. I'm not going anywhere because I know exactly what it is now.
XRP is one of the most innovative platforms out there.
Three things happened. A journalist published a report about a cryptocurrency, and a few hours later, someone called his house. They didn't ask for money. They didn't make a threat. They just recited his wife's birthday and hung up. A European cryptocurrency exchange criticized the exact same asset. Within hours, they deleted the post, issued a public apology, and said it didn't reflect their values. And then I found something even stranger. For nearly 8 years, tens of thousands of people woke up and opened the same website and checked the balance of the same wallet every single morning.
This crypto trade of the year is not Bitcoin, it is not Ether, it is XRP.
I understood why people bought XRP, but what I didn't understand was why people were willing to defend it like they were defending themselves. So I went back to the beginning. Imagine finishing a 12-hour shift, opening your bank app and sending $200 home. Your mother needs medications, your daughter needs school fees, so you press send. They received $188, $12 disappeared. Not because anyone stole it, not because anyone hacked your account. It disappeared because of the financial system itself, and she'll probably never know where it went. She'll just know it isn't there. That problem is older than the internet. Most international payments still travel through a network called SWIFT, built in 1973, before smartphones, before email, before the modern internet even existed. When your money crosses borders, it often passes multiple corresponding banks, each one charging a fee, each one adding delays, each one taking a small piece of your money. For decades, nobody seriously rebuilt it, because the people earning from the system had very little incentive to replace it. Then in 2012, a small group of engineers proposed something radical. What if money moved like information? What if sending value across the world was as easy as sending a text message? They built a blockchain called the XRP Ledger. Transactions could settle in seconds for a fraction of a cent. Instead of routing payment through multiple banks, the system could use a digital bridge asset. The asset was XRP.
What we're trying to build is a global payment network that allows anyone, anywhere in the world, to send any currency basically for free that is irreversible so that you can make payments much more efficient. So we federate the world's payment systems, and that's what we're particularly excited about. Look at Ripple like HTTP for money.
Amazing. Basically, I use this to send money back to Mexico, to my family. I discovered that there were no fees. That was super fast, and as I told you before, in less than 5 minutes my money is there.
Banks began exploring Ripple's technology. Some experimented with RippleNet. A much smaller number experimented with XRP itself. Headlines blurred the difference. Investors often blurred the difference. And somewhere inside that confusion, a movement quietly began forming. Millions of ordinary people weren't buying XRP because they love blockchain. Most couldn't even explain consensus algorithm or distributed ledger. They were buying something more simpler. They were buying an idea that someone had finally built a better financial system. And if that idea became a reality, everything could change. At least that was the dream. The question was, what exactly were they buying? The banks had choose XRP. For years, that sentence echoed through the crypto world. Every partnership announcement, every pilot program, every new financial institution exploring Ripple's technology felt like another piece of evidence. The future wasn't coming, it was already happening. And honestly, I understood why people believed it. For the first time, this wasn't another cryptocurrency promising to replace money.
Initially, when we started, we wanted to work with regulators. That did not make us the cool kids back then. We wanted to work with institutions and make them better. As it turns out, I think that was the right bet. We are seeing companies that used to basically kick us out of meetings, meaning large banks who said, don't talk about crypto, don't mention the word blockchain or Bitcoin or what have you, they're now coming to us because we've been very consistent in how we've approached the market.
Jane, it's just creating that level playing field so that we can get all this other cool technology going. What does XRP mean to you?
Freedom from the banks, independence from having a bit large institutions take your money and just drain the bottom of it. You know, a continual trickling of nickels and dimes out of your accounts, and gives you the freedom to be able to move money effortlessly and without massive amounts of friction.
Was trying to become digital gold or the next global computer. He had one job: move money faster, cheaper, cross borders. He solved the problem everybody already agreed existed. People didn't just buy XRP hoping someone would eventually find a use for it. Many believe the use case existed, but the world hasn't just caught up yet. Ripple announced partnership around the world. Santander, American Express, SBI Holdings in Japan. Banks were experimenting, governments were paying attention. The headlines kept coming, and with every announcement, the belief grew stronger. But the deeper I researched, the more one question kept bothering me, because there was something nobody seemed able to explain cleanly. What exactly was increasing in value? Was it Ripple or XRP? Those sound like the same question, but they are not. Ripple could sign another banking partnership tomorrow without the bank ever touching XRP. Some banks explored Ripple payment software, but only a much smaller number experimented with XRP itself. And somewhere inside that distinction, the entire story changes. Then another question appeared. If XRP wasn't a share in Ripple, why did Ripple still own so much of it? When XRP was created, 100 billion tokens came into existence. Ripple retained roughly 80 billion, nearly 80% of the total supply. I kept reading that number over and over again, because it created this strange contradiction. If XRP was simply a currency, then why does one private company control so much of it? But if XRP represented Ripple, why doesn't owning XRP give you ownership of Ripple? No voting right, no dividends, no equity. It seems it existed somewhere between everything. Not quite a currency, not quite a stock, not a commodity, not a software. And that confusion will eventually become the most expensive legal argument in crypto history. But before the government ever got involved, something else happened. While millions of people were buying XRP, one person couldn't wait to sell it. And he wasn't just anyone, he helped create it. Most people know Brad Garlinghouse, the CEO, the public face of Ripple, but he wasn't there at the beginning. The story actually starts with another man, Jed McCaleb. If you've been around crypto long enough, you've almost certainly heard his name. He helped build Bitcoin, the first major Bitcoin exchange. Then he co-founded Ripple and helped create XRP. And then, less than 2 years later, he left. He left after a disagreement with Ripple's leadership, started another blockchain called Stellar, and took 9 billion XRP with him. Ripple immediately panicked. If McCaleb sold all 9 billion XRP, the market could collapse overnight. So they went to court, eventually reaching an agreement. He could sell, but only gradually. And that's where I found something I honestly couldn't believe. Developers built an entire website dedicated to just one thing: tracking Jed McCaleb's wallet in real time. Every sell, every transfer, every balance update. The community gave the wallet a nickname: Tacostand. Every morning, the same ritual: open the website, refresh, still selling, refresh, still selling, refresh, still selling, day after day, year after year. Some people check the weather every morning. The XRP community checked Tacostand. Between 2024 to 2022, Jed McCaleb slowly sold nearly every XRP he owned, one transaction at a time. This was the question I couldn't get off my head. Imagine building something, then spending the next 8 years trying to leave it. What would that tell you? Maybe nothing. Maybe everything. I genuinely don't know. The XRP community didn't know either. They argued about it consistently. Some believed Jed had lost faith. Others believed he simply wanted diversification. Others said he had every right to sell. Nobody agreed, but everybody watched, because every sale felt personal. Then, in July 2022, Tacostand went silent. Jed had finally sold his last XRP. Brad posted just 2 words: JK. The stand is closed. The man who helped build XRP had completely exited. Millions of investors were still holding, and only a few months later, the biggest challenge in XRP history arrived. Not from another cryptocurrency, not from a market crash, from the United States government. December 22nd, 3 days before Christmas. Most people were thinking about family, present, travel. But then, the Securities and Exchange Commission published a document, 71 pages. And with a single filing, everything changed. SEC wasn't accusing Ripple of fraud. They weren't saying XRP didn't work. They weren't saying the technology was fake. The argument was something much stranger. They said XRP had been a security all along, that Ripple had raised over $1.3 billion selling an unregistered security. It sounded like a technical legal dispute, but in reality, it changed the lives of millions of people overnight. Within hours, exchanges began delisting XRP. Coinbase, Kraken, Binance US, one after another. Trading disappeared, liquidity collapsed, the price followed, billions of dollars vanished.
That lawsuit, I think, is misguided. I think the idea that XRP is a security, it has traded out there for 8 years. If it was a security, I guess we should have known that a long time ago.
You draw the line, the distinction between what is a security and what is an actual currency.
XRP, however, is almost undistinguishable from Ether in terms of its decentralization, in terms of the breadth of activity. It's traded on a couple hundred exchanges around the world.
When people talk about this story, they usually talk about Ripple, the SEC, the lawyers. I kept thinking about somebody else. Imagine you're sitting at work and then you open your phone and then you see your investment is down 30%. You refresh, down again. You refresh, down again. You refresh. Another exchange just delisted it. You refresh. Nobody knows what's happening. You aren't reading legal filing. You're just watching years of savings disappear. In real time, in person. That person was never invited into a courtroom, never spoke to Ripple, never met the SEC, but yet somehow they became the one paying the price. The SEC argued it was protecting investors. Many investors believed they had just become victims. Markets usually respond to bad news the same way. People leave, they cut their losses, they move on. The XRP community moved closer together. $75,000 people, that is roughly the population of a small city. Teachers, truck drivers, engineers, business owners, people who had never met each other, all decided to fight the United States government over a cryptocurrency. That sentence sounds ridiculous until you understand that's what actually happened. They hired Anthony John Dayton. Thousands submitted sworn affidavits. Thousands more researched the case, finding speeches, old SEC statements, public interviews, legal arguments. Ripple's own lawyers later admitted that the community found evidence that would take legal teams thousands of billable hours to uncover. They weren't employees. Most had never even met each other, but yet they worked like people trying to protect something sacred. For nearly 4 years, the lawsuit continued. Then, in July 2023, Judge Analisa Torres issued a decision. Programmatic sales of XRP on public exchanges were not security transactions. For the XRP community, it felt like vindication, and it is where I expected the story to end. The community survived, XRP survived, the believers were right, at least partly. But then, I remember where the story started from. Not with Ripple, not with the SEC, with a phone call. A journalist, a phone call, his wife's birthday, his home address, Bitstamp apologizing for a tweet, researchers reporting coordinated harassment. Not the whole community, some individuals, but enough to make me uncomfortable because I couldn't stop asking myself one question. How can the same community produce one of the most remarkable examples of retail investor organizing peacefully in modern financial history and also produce moments like that? Think about everything they've lived through. Years of people laughing at them, years of price decline, years of watching Jed McCaleb sell, years of regulatory uncertainty, 4 years inside one of the biggest lawsuit crypto I've ever seen. Every time they stayed, living became harder, not financially, psychologically, because along the way, selling XRP stopped feeling like changing your portfolio. It started feeling like abandoning your tribe. The XRP Ledger is still running, Ripple still exists, banks continue exploring digital payments, the argument continues, the debate continues, the belief continues. When I started researching XRP, I thought I was making a video about a crypto company. I wasn't. I was making a documentary about human beings, about what happened when hope attached itself to an investment. Religions aren't defined by whether they are true. They are defined by what people are willing to sacrifice for them.
I think that's been a big reason for XRP's success over the last, many years, and the longevity as well. I mean, XRP is the third biggest crypto, and a lot of that success is due to the community, due to the people who are believing in it, who are actually building on the XRP Ledger as well. If you launch in the XRP Ledger community and within the XRP Ledger, everybody's excited about it.
So guys, this is episode 4 of the most innovative company inspiring the internet nobody's talking about. Episode 5 is coming soon. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe so you get notified when we drop new content. Thank you.